Okay, third time's a charm, everybody. I bear with me. She's on her way. She says with August Bryce. August, are you with us? And I think she is on her way. August, are you on with us? Hello, hello. Okay. I see your note. You said you requested, and maybe there's some technical difficulties. Yeah, it says right here, August is unable to join. Well, honey, I'm not sure what to do about this. I am not tech savvy. So um, I will have to take a deeper dive at this, everybody. I'm going to try one more time. There she is. Oh my gosh. You know what?
What?
I think I
But
think that people just knew this was going to be an amazing conversation, and the powers that be, all EMFs, didn't want us to have this conversation.
oh,
So,
that's it. A
so we
little
just go like
conspiracy.
this to them because this information's going out today.
That was wild, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good, August. It's so great to see you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. This, but it's like the third or fourth time, but you're here. I'm here. We've got our, great information to share, and our love of people and our love of wanting them to be healthy. So, yeah,
Thank you
we're
for the
going to
great
talk about all the
introduction.
things.
I heard three great introductions. So,
Yes, well, you are I'm just going to call you the queen of EMFs. And there was a 5G tower that went in outside of my garden. I have the most amazing garden at my house. And I looked up one day and I'm like, what the heck is that monstrosity? And it was a 5G tower. Nobody asked me.
now is it the millimeter wave? The 5G millimeter wave? Did you
Tell
get
me,
see
tell me.
that? Okay.
Okay, let's
Okay.
go.
Because 5G on its own is very complicated and
Okay,
sort of a misunderstood
okay.
topic. So let's get that out of the way first. So yeah, there's towers going up everywhere, right? And more of us
Yes.
are seeing them because more and more of them are allowed and the licensing is a little different now. But there's a new thing that came with 5G, and 5G just means fifth generation.
Hmm.
And fifth generation took the generations before it, namely 4G, LTE, the radio frequencies that we had always been communicating on,
Hmm.
and it added a new layer.
Oh,
And so I
good.
always like to explain this to people so that they understand, because you can't see them or smell them or touch them.
Hmm.
But we are using something called the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. We're using these waves to communicate. And, airplanes use them to communicate with each other. They're not all bad. In fact, wireless is
Hmm.
amazing. But a new part of the wireless spectrum was opened up for specifically for 5G, and it was called the millimeter wave. And normally we've been exposed to that millimeter wave when we walk through that scanner at the airport, the one that we
Hmm.
stand in and it goes like
Right.
this around us, takes a couple seconds. That's a
Hmm.
millimeter wave. And the thing about the millimeter wave is, other than that, we have not been exposed to it and
Hmm.
in our daily life. And now people, maybe you have seen a millimeter wave tower. I do have a story where I show pictures of them so people can help understand what they are, because it's a new layer added to all the layers of radiation that we're already exposed to. And this is a little bit different. They're going up every block or so. So it could be in your
Hmm.
garden. This doesn't surprise me
Okay.
because I actually have six within walking distance of
Oh
me.
my
And
gosh.
it's horrible. And I live in a fairly, I would say, suburban area of
Hmm.
Dallas. And it's a residential neighborhood. And what is happening is these millimeter wave uh, transmitters or antennas are going up because eventually they're what is going to help us drive wireless cars because the sensors in our cars are going to communicate with these
Oh,
antennas to keep us in the lane. Meanwhile, what they're doing
wow.
is they're exposing your beautiful home and your beautiful
Hmm.
garden and you to
Hmm.
radiation that we know is dangerous. And
Right.
this particular blend of radiation from this millimeter wave um, has been studied, a bit, mostly by the Russians who are using it to look at the medicinal
Hmm.
purposes of it, using it to possibly help. And then they found out there were side effects.
Mm.
So we know that it has particular effects on our eyes. We know that it can use our sweat glands as antennas so that we absorb more of that radiation.
Hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
What?
yes. And it's also, we do know
Oh my
that it
gosh.
increases antibiotic resistance. Those are the
Oh
solid
my
research studies about this
gosh.
particular millimeter wave. So I'm really hoping that more and more people can understand
Oh,
this, find out about this, and that technology companies in their wisdom will stop putting these in residential neighborhoods, if anywhere at all.
oh my
If this
gosh.
was coming
Well,
with 5G.
and you say in their wisdom, really?
Well,
Is it
you
wisdom
know,
or is it just the
I
almighty dollar?
well, up until this point,
Mm-hmm.
right. It's actually it's actually also our desire for
Mm-hmm.
these. It's our desire for this
We're driving
communication.
it. Right.
Yeah,
We're driving it. Yeah.
yeah.
We want the George Jetson mobile where,
Exactly.
but at
Exactly.
what
So
price?
that's it. At
Yeah.
what price? And I
Mm-hmm.
think, especially you, Deborah, once you are on a healing journey, all these
Mm-hmm.
things become so much
They
more
do.
important to you. And that's how I like to explain this. It's just another toxin that our
Mm-hmm.
body has to deal with. And our body finds these things so much more difficult to deal with
Right.
when we're
Yeah.
healing. And we know what all the waves on the
Oh
radiation
my
spectrum
gosh.
absolutely have a biological effect. And eventually, part of that
Mm-hmm.
effect is leading to cancer because it's causing oxidative stress,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that
Right.
oxidative stress leads to
It drives
a breakdown. It
everything. It
does.
drives everything. Oh
So,
my gosh. So I'm like still just reeling from your comment that 5G can hijack my sweat
well,
glands.
yeah, because it's interesting this particular millimeter wave. So 5G is a blend of everything.
Hmm.
The regular radio frequency waves that have been used to power our cell phones up until this time,
Hmm.
those are all still there. So it didn't get replaced. It got it added onto. And I
Okay.
like to help people visualize this by talking about it as like comparing it to cigarette smoke. So at the tip of the cigarette, it's a very dense smoke, right? When the
Hmm.
cigarette is lit, you got all the smoke coming out at you. The further you get away from it, the more it dissipates, the less you're exposed to it.
Hmm.
So we've all got all that smoke in the air from all of the antennas. And there's
Right.
antennas in all of our wireless.
Yeah.
There's antennas in our phones, our Wi-Fi, our Bluetooth speakers, the cell phone
Hmm.
towers. This radiation is everywhere. And now we're adding on a new blend, which I like to refer to as maybe cigar smoke. So now you've got the cigarette smoke, you're layering on the cigar smoke,
Hmm.
and there's just more toxicity. And this cigar smoke, this
Hmm.
millimeter wave that we're talking about, is the one that in studies has been shown to target our sweat glands, maybe because it's a higher power right next to it, because you have to be so close to it.
Right.
Or maybe it's the size of the waves. The waves are very, very small. In fact, they're just a millimeter. They carry a lot of
Hmm.
data, but we need a lot of these antennas. That's why they're about a block apart,
Hmm.
because that millimeter wave doesn't travel very far. So anyway,
Interesting.
you don't want one in your
You
neighborhood. You don't want one
don't.
in your backyard.
Yeah.
There's a lot more research coming, and we'll be feeling those effects. Many of us who are
Hmm.
sensitive be feeling it, another effect of the layer of radiation.
Wow.
Mhm.
And that's what really brought you into this work is you have would I say an unnatural, which is funny,
Yeah.
or an abnormal sensitivity to non-native EMFs. So
Right,
native EMFs are just naturally occurring on our planet, right? I mean,
right,
but the
right.
non-native is exactly what you're talking about. It's the cell phone use, it's the Bluetooth technology, all of those things.
Right. It's man-made EMF or non-native
Right.
EMF as opposed to the naturally occurring EMF.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hear this a lot. You know what's coming from the sun? Yes, but it changes
Mm-hmm.
when man harnesses it to use it for power or for wireless energy, and
Right.
it changes the way those waves are
Mm-hmm.
polarized. And it to my body it feels like there's just so much interference with my own electrical system. And most people who have the sensitivity will
Mm-hmm.
talk about things like anxiety and tingling and
Mm-hmm.
numbness and insomnia and headaches. And so these are when you hear those particular symptoms, you think of the central nervous
Mm-hmm.
system. And so it starts to make sense in that respect. And that's amazing for me that I can feel it because it helps me avoid it. But for others who can't feel it, it doesn't mean it's not having a
Mm-hmm.
biological effect
That's
because
really true.
100% it's having a biological effect.
Yeah.
We're seeing it in nature.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing it with our own health issues. You know,
Right.
we're seeing huge increases of cancer. And I think that this toxin is additive to that increase.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I know we both are friends with Dr.
Mhm.
Keneally and her wonderful cancer treatment center in Irvine,
Absolutely.
California.
Mhm.
And I heard her on a podcast, and she's been a guest on my podcast a
Yes.
couple of times. And I heard her on another podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about the huge uptick in rectal cancer in young people. And there's a multitude of reasons, but in her opinion, and she's a well-known expert in this field, processed foods, lack of activity, and sticking your cell phone in
Absolutely.
your back
Yes.
pocket.
Leanne and I are good friends, and we've talked
Oh,
about this.
yeah.
And and it doesn't, it's not hard to make that connection. And also because we know about the new fertility numbers, specifically regarding sperm count.
Hmm.
A new study was just released in December, and it was a Swedish study of 2,300 men.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that if they used their cell phone and put it in their pocket and used it up to over 20 times a day, there was a very significant increase in the lack of sperm and the lack of
Wow.
sperm concentration. In fact, I really hadn't noticed this before, but the World Health Organization has a standard for fertile men,
Mm-hmm.
and it puts these men 20 to 30% lower than the standard. This lower sperm count that's associated
Wow.
with using their cell phone
Wow.
and carrying the cell phone when they're not using it.
Right.
So it's this super in-depth study. They asked just tons of health questions. And these were young men, 18 to 22 years old.
Which they've got good swimmers.
They should.
They should have great
And,
swimmers, and
and it's
apparently
interesting because
they
that
don't have
study,
good swimmers
yeah,
according to this study.
well, that study actually didn't, it said that they didn't see an effect on what's called motility and mobility.
Okay.
So that's one part of it. But there
Mm-hmm.
are other studies that have shown those effects very clearly. This was specifically about sperm
Oh,
count. And
okay.
so you put the two together and it's very
Very
dramatic, right?
dramatic. Yeah. So
So,
how does this impact our world? I mean, I guess we're having more fertility issues because
oh,
I feel like I
for
see,
sure.
fertility,
I,
clinics every couple of miles when I'm driving down the freeway. And then are we just having fewer
well,
babies?
I have a great study about fertility in
Mm.
men globally, and not study, but article on my website where we talk about this in depth. And yes, fertility rates worldwide are down. And that's
Mm.
a huge problem, especially for any couple who's
Oh, yeah.
struggling. You don't have to tell them. It's a horrible thing to go through. And if this is having even a small effect on whatever
Right.
the overall picture involving fertility is. This is really a big deal.
It's a
And
huge deal.
the great
Yeah.
thing is this one's a pretty easy fix, right? Don't carry your cell phone in your pocket.
Right.
Don't use your cell phone except if you're using it with a wired headset
Hmm.
or on speakerphone.
Right.
So those are two very easy fixes that if I would tell any young couple, any young man, this is one that you really need to be careful about.
Yeah. And I remember years ago when we did our podcast, you were saying that in the small print in the paperwork that comes with your
Yeah,
phone,
yeah.
it says, "Don't let this phone touch your body."
It still says it. Even your iPhone, even your watch. Your
Oh
watch
my,
is supposed to be
wait a
10
second.
centimeters. And what
Your
they're saying
Apple
is
Watch is supposed to not be on your body?
the fine print says that
Nice.
in order to meet the FCC SAR guidelines, which
Uh-huh.
are pretty generous because they just talk about heat effects, but in order to meet the standards, that the testing was done with a separation
Mm.
of 10 centimeters.
Okay.
Okay. So
That
I
seems
think what they're saying is,
perfectly doable,
right.
August.
So
Oh
to me,
my
so to
gosh.
me, doesn't that mean don't put it on you? Don't let it
Right.
touch your body. Don't
Right.
let it come near you, or you're not even going to meet these very generous, very outdated standards, which, there's actually, there's, there was a lawsuit against the FCC saying change your standards, and actually there it's in the FCC's court now to answer why they haven't changed
Mm.
their standards and possibly to change them to make them more realistic
Mm.
for all this power that we're subjected to, all this
Hmm.
radiation that we're subjected to maybe just out of the gate
Right.
help people use this technology in a safer way.
Hmm. Which would be great. Do you think that will ever happen?
Think it's happening very, 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 very slowly. And
Hmm.
I think that we are in the driver's seat now as far as protecting our own health.
I think
We
you're right.
must be.
We can't,
In fact,
yeah, we can't just trust the government or, the
no,
cell phone companies, or they're not going to say, "Oh, August, we love that you bought our new phone, but hey, when you go for a jog on the beach, don't stick it in your bra." I mean, it's not going to, they're not going to be talking to us
you,
like that, even
you
though
know,
that's the reality
wouldn't
of
that
what
be
we should
wonderful
and should be doing. Yeah.
though?
Hmm.
I love the schools that are encouraging children and are not letting kids even bring their phones to school. And
Mm.
that was a move that's been made by parents and
Mm.
teachers and educators and principals, right? So we need to also understand that first it's awareness, secondly it's incorporating those changes into our
Right.
lives. Because, and I think this Tasmania study just came out showing that they did a countrywide study and they showed that awareness was high about the proper way to use technology.
Mm.
Things like don't use your phone unless it has full signal strength.
Hmm.
Things like don't sleep with your phone under your pillow.
Hmm.
Things like don't stand in front of the microwave while it's on.
Right.
There was, right? There
Yeah.
was a high awareness. They found out that only 30% of the entire population, um, all ages and sexes, they all knew
Mm.
overall. I mean, there were, details, but overall, there was a good understanding and awareness. So I think that really can be extrapolated globally. I think that
Hmm.
we are aware, that most of us are
Right.
aware now
Yeah, I
of
think
the
you're right.
precautions that we should take.
Hmm.
Now, taking them, that's the next step. I heard you in one of the intros saying that you use the Wi Fi kill switch.
Yeah, I got that. I bought that from Tech Wellness website. And now, when I bought that a year and a half ago, people thought I was crazy, but that's
Mm,
okay. I mean, I've been called many things in my 30 years in health and wellness, and I'm okay with crazy. I'm okay with fringe, but I know that if there are multiple research studies that say, being in the presence of that Wi-Fi turns down my melatonin and my serotonin production. And that's the last thing you want at night. And Also, amazing studies about women with lower melatonin production having higher risk of breast
For
cancer.
sure.
Yeah, I've already had that. Check the box. I
Mm,
don't want breast cancer again.
right, right.
Yeah.
So very good reasons.
Hmm.
And turning off the Wi-Fi at night or anytime you're not using it,
Yeah.
has that been
Yeah.
difficult?
No, because I have this really easy kill switch, and we hop into bed and I say to my husband, "You got the kill switch?" He goes,
Right.
"Doing it right now." And so at least it's off for 8 or 9 hours a day, which is, it's better than nothing. I spend a lot of time when I can outside. I My phone is in airplane mode a good chunk of the day. I also learned from you to, download a podcast, download a book. You don't need to be listening, download it and then go on airplane mode.
So easy, right? There's a lot of things that we can do.
There's a
And
lot of
that's what
things
we
we can
try to do at
do.
Tech Wellness.
Yeah,
That's what we try to do. We try to take the solutions and put them in little
that's
bite-sized
right.
pieces that you can incorporate one every day to make your life
Right.
a little bit safer with
Right.
technology. Like don't put your laptop on your lap.
Hmm.
Like use a meter to find the hidden sources, things that you didn't even know in your home had a wireless component. That's a really good one.
That is a really good one. And in fact, I ordered an EMF meter from you. I lost it maybe like a year ago. And I was just on your site and I saw you've got 3 or 4 different options. So I want to
Yes.
let you know, with all these witnesses, I'm ordering one today. But I also, I'm a little bit nervous because I think I'm in a little bit of a bliss bubble, and I'm just sitting here and I've got Wi-Fi on and I've got a microwave over here and I've got lights, and I think I am surrounded by EMFs, and maybe I just don't want to know.
I hear that a lot, and I
Hmm.
think that that's true. I think I understand, and it's funny. I sent someone who was looking for a new home a meter, and so they were all about it on their new house, right? They're walking
Yeah.
around looking at the property, doing a study. Okay, then they get into
Oh
their current home, a,
boy.
co- a condo, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's radioactive," and
Hmm.
we didn't even know
Yeah.
it. And so, what did they do? They made little changes.
Well,
They just
yeah.
started, they just started, especially they started at night. They
Hmm.
got the Wi-Fi switch,
Okay.
they turned off the Wi-Fi. They put their phones on airplane when they weren't using them.
Hmm.
They turned them off completely of things like they too, like we do, have wireless speakers in our home. So with those
Hmm.
wireless speakers, they're off 90% of the time, which is kind of sad. That means there's not music in my home
Yeah.
90% of the time. They come
Right.
on they come on when the speakers come on. And one of these days, Deborah, I'm going to open up that Sonos speaker. I'm going to find that Bluetooth connection and I'm going to take it out
And
because
kill it.
I did it with my washer and dryer. And
I
my husband
know.
said
I
I can
saw
do it with these. So,
that. That's great. Because
yeah,
technology isn't going away. And this IG Live is not meant to be terrifying. It's really intended to say, hey, just look around your house. What are some
right.
little things that you can do?
Perfect.
And so other things, I use wired headphones. I rarely use
AirPods.
AirPods. If I do,
Right.
I've got a wrap for them, which
Perfect.
knocks down the radiation.
Mhm.
What other things? What about things like putting covers on your phone, like an EMF cover, or
Well,
I see
the
those
one
stickers and things
the
like
thing that
that.
you talk about that wrap the radiation, I actually did a little video on that, and it brings it down,
Hmm.
not to less than extreme. And the
Okay.
problem with that is it's in your ears all the
Right.
time. So with those AirPods,
Hmm.
just this is a little solution. Just use one if you must, if you have to have them in your
Hmm.
ears.
Hmm.
Realize that they're on even if you're not using them.
Yeah.
If you're just waiting for a phone call, best to put them somewhere else that's
Hmm.
not touching your body because
Hmm.
we know that the most dramatic exposure and the most dramatic impact on our biology is when we're in the near field, which is right next to wherever
Okay.
the antenna
Okay.
is. That we know for
Okay.
sure. So let's just try not to have that phone in our hands, in our pockets.
Hmm.
Let's have it on the counter. I love keeping my phone on a stand.
Hmm.
I just keep it on a stand. It's over there. I use a stylus to turn it on. It's if you start at least around your own house
Hmm.
or your office using your phone this way, you'll see that you don't need to be carrying it all the
Yeah,
time. Right?
I think that's really, yeah, I think that's really good advice. And it's simple, and
Very simple.
technology isn't going away. It's
Right.
accelerating. So
That's true.
we really are the masters of it. And
In
I
our
think
own homes,
in our own
especially Deborah.
homes, yes. And so
Yes.
I know that when I'm at the airport and all the other things, I have very little control. So I know to just focus on being joyful,
That's right.
because
And
I know that that changes my cells when I'm happy and joyful and seeing
I
the good in things and the good in
yes.
people.
Yes.
But when I'm in my home, still
Yeah.
joyful, but I can control things. I can control my food. I can control not eating a lot of seed oils like canola oil and all the vegetable oil. I can
Right.
control things like that, but I can also control how I use technology.
Exactly. I love that. It's
Yeah.
all about stressors, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you're expressing gratitude, it's
Hmm.
slowing your stress,
Hmm.
and it's sending out that wonderful energy to everyone. I love that.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm still happy in my home. Probably your body just isn't going through the
Hmm.
stress that it would in the outside world. And it's easier to get into
Hmm.
parasympathetic when we're not trying to get into it exposed to cell phone radiation, wireless radiation. It's just how it works.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a good thing to try to control around the house.
Hmm.
I like that you talked about not keeping it, in your bra, in your pockets. That's super good. And if we
Hmm.
just remember that distance is our friend, you know,
Hmm.
it, it's over there. The further away from me it is, the
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, that is really good advice. Yeah, and distance is your friend. And like I said, when I see people walking, usually women, and they've got it in their bra, I just have to go up and I say,
Is it
"I'm
on
going
your
to
foot?
give you, can I give you some unsolicited advice, please?" And not that I ever really did that, so it's still shocking
Yeah.
why I got diagnosed with breast cancer. But it seems like I didn't have a cell phone until I don't know, maybe I was 25,
Mhm.
30. So what is it doing to children? And I guess I'll just maybe end with this question: are children more susceptible
Well,
to
absolutely.
EMFs?
Absolutely, because their bones aren't developed, their tissues
Mm,
are more exposed. And so,
mm.
absolutely, and we are seeing it, sadly, where for the first time ever, it's been reported that incidence of children's brain cancer
Oh,
is definitely on the rise globally.
oh,
And this makes sense. I mean, they're exposed
mm.
practically, many of them, right when they're born with the
Right,
wireless camera right above their
right.
crib. That's one thing. That's one thing we haven't talked about. If you want to talk about kids, this
Wow.
is when they are at their most vulnerable.
Oh,
They are newborns, they're babies, and we're putting a wireless camera
oh.
sometimes right over their crib, sometimes in their crib, and that
Hmm.
wireless camera comes with EMF radiation. I am in favor of using them far away, 12 feet
Okay,
away.
okay.
That's okay if we must do that. And also, there are some new cameras that only turn on when they're activated by a voice. And I have a
Mm.
video coming out next week showing one of
Oh,
them
good.
and seeing exactly what the baby's exposed to. I
Hmm.
set it up and I put a little teddy bear as the baby. And so the meter lays on the teddy bear so you can see what a baby would be exposed to using this new technology and how far we are from the technology.
Hmm.
And I hope it'll be just really interesting for parents to see they can
Right,
still see the baby. They can
right,
still see their beautiful bundle of joy and they can hear their baby and just be a
right.
little bit safer and hopefully exposing the baby to less radiation, which in turn will for sure cause less oxidative stress for the baby, just like it does for us.
Absolutely, because they're having a lifetime of exposure, as instead of you and I having an exposure of maybe 40 years, 50
Right,
years, because we really weren't exposed until our probably 20s and 30s
right, exactly.
to this much
Right.
radiation.
And just
Hmm.
like you, Deborah, look at you healed,
Hmm.
right? It's been a journey. And I believe in the human body. I
Hmm.
believe that, certain epigenetics, certain stressors, certain environmental things, we're all different.
Yes.
And and I think that we eventually, maybe someday, can adjust to this. But in the meantime, this is huge stress on our body, and we need
Mm-hmm.
to do everything we can to avoid it as we fortify our bodies, as we're increasing flavonoids in our life, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that flavonoids are definitely the best antioxidants, right, out there.
Right.
The quercetin, the
Right.
fresh blueberries,
Mm-hmm.
the things that we can
Right.
do to protect ourselves. We're going
Right.
to do that as well as avoid, and hopefully the research and just our choices will
Mm-hmm.
catch up, and we'll find that level of
Mm-hmm.
balance.
Wow, that is really good. Yes. So eat well, lots of produce, heavy plants, but also, I'm a big believer in really wonderful grass-fed protein,
Me too.
humanely processed, humanely
Right.
raised, and learn to manage your technology. Yeah,
Right.
and start small. I mean, movement is still movement. So just, I had one of our friends' kids, and this was a couple of years ago when maybe there was less awareness, and she said, "You mean I shouldn't sleep with my phone under my pillow?" And
Exactly.
I said, "Yeah, so let's just start with that. Let's
Right.
just get a regular, like an old fashioned alarm clock.
Yes.
But if you really need your phone in your room, let's go airplane mode and get it about 6 feet from your bed. And we'll start
Absolutely.
small. I mean, that can make a huge impact, just little things."
And I bet you she started feeling better too.
I'm sure she did. I'm sure she
Right?
did. Right. And long term, it's really going to, have
Yeah.
some potential
Yeah.
incredible benefits for her body.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
August,
Thanks,
thank
Deborah.
you
Best
so
wishes to
much for
you.
coming on IG Live, and we'll be in touch. And I just really encourage everyone to go to August's website, follow her on Instagram. She is just a wealth of information. I always learn something new. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Be well.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.